Okay. Well, you know, the good thing is that we do have interpretation on the screen. So each slide is both in English and in Spanish, and we will do our best. I'm waiting to hear back from a coworker. We're going to move forward. We want to be very cognizant of your time and respectful. So what we're going to start with today is our disclaimer, and the information contained here has been prepared by Civitas Strategies and is not intended to constitute legal, tax, or financial advice. The Civitas Strategies team has used reasonable efforts in collecting, preparing, and providing this information, but does not guarantee its accuracy, its completeness, its adequacy, or currency. The publication and distribution of this information is not intended to create, and receipt does not constitute an attorney-client or any other advisory relationship. Reproduction of this information is expressly prohibited.
Advertencia: la información contenida aquí ha sido preparada por Civitas Strategias y no pretende constituir asesoramiento legal, fiscal o financiero. El equipo de Civitas Strategies ha realizado esfuerzos razonables para recopilar, preparar y proporcionar esta información, pero no garantiza su exactitud, integridad, adecuación o vigencia. La publicación y distribución de esta información no tiene la intención de crear, y la recepción no constituye una relación abogado-cliente o cualquier otra relación de asesoramiento. La reproducción de esta información está expresamente prohibida.
Thank you, Emily. So, once again, if you don't mind just explaining to our Spanish participants, maybe we have someone else who has jumped on there. I do have a response here, folks. I'm going to go off camera for just a moment, and then we're going to jump right back on. So I'm just trying to get a little technical help here. So hold on just a moment, please. Thank you.
Gracias de nuevo por su paciencia. Parece que la patrocinadora Jennifer ahora está en conversación con el equipo técnico y por eso no la ves ahora en la pantalla. Estamos tratando de arreglar la situación lo antes posible. Mientras tanto, es una suerte que tenemos la misma pantalla escrita en inglés y también en español. Discúlpanos este problema técnico y esperamos empezar muy pronto.
Well, I just want to let everyone know that this is not a reflection, please, on decal, and this is an error on the part of our setup here. So I'm not sure exactly why we are having such difficulty. I do have a coworker who's looking into it on the back side here, so we're trying to find that. It is possible, as you mentioned, Emily, that perhaps we're not set up for this. So I think, Emily, what would be the best thing to do is that I'm going to do the presentation, and then I know that this is not ideal, but perhaps when I'm finished with each slide, Leanne is here. Hi, Leanne.
Hi, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Jen, I just made Emily a panelist instead of an attendee, and so I think that may have fixed the problem. If you want to go ahead and give it one more try. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I'm hoping that may have fixed it. So
thank you. Leanne is our angel here tonight, folks.
Well, let's not say that till it's fixed.
Well, let's see. We are going to get through this one way.
A ver si se arregló. Que ya.
There we go.
A ver,
Thank you. So that's just a little error. Everyone now can switch to the Spanish channel.
And the button is on the bottom if you need to switch into the interpretation channel. It's that globe-like icon.
Yep. Yeah, we went over. So there's the globe, and if you don't see the globe, you can go into the more option and click on interpretation. So you may not see that there. Emily, how about in the chat if you can hear me over on the Spanish side? Sorry about that, Leanne. I didn't realize, I wasn't involved in the setup. So.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
I will try to message Emily and make sure. I'm not hearing back from her, but She's all set. Okay, we are all set. So
Perfect.
sorry for the hiccup. Thank you
Thank-
all for your patience, and I'll let Jen continue.
Great. Thanks, Leanne. I really appreciate your help.
Of course.
Thanks so much. Okay, folks, sometimes these things happen. We'll make sure we make it up on the back end. So we'll be okay there. So tonight I have to ask the question, what is it about tax time that gets us all so upset, right? So if you feel stress or confusion at tax time, you're not alone. You're not alone, but I do have a solution. That's planning and preparation, right? So these are the keys to make sure that tax time goes exactly as you need it to. So you have enough on your plate running a childcare business. You don't need the added worry of this. So you're going to see tonight that we're going to discuss why you should care about your taxes, right? You're going to see that it's more than just following the law. So caring about your taxes, there are fantastic business opportunities to be had when you file your taxes, and we're going to discuss those. So profit retention is one of them, and that's always exciting there. Now, for home-based childcare providers, you may be very familiar with the Schedule C, and that is what you prepare along with your Form 1040 when you file your taxes. Now, it's possible, though, that the Schedule C could be a mystery to you because maybe you just hand your taxes over to someone in terms of preparation, and you don't have the opportunity to actually get a look at the Schedule C and understand what it is. So tonight we're going to take a close look at that. We're going to break down the Schedule C so that it's not so much of a mystery to you. And then we do know that once you have the knowledge about taxes, the next step is to prepare, right? So first we're going to start with the knowledge, then we're going to talk about the preparation. So there are steps that you can take to make preparation even easier on yourself. If you are using a tax preparer, now you'll have a very good idea of what goes into filing your taxes. Again, that education, right? So even if we're using someone else to file our taxes, this is really the opportunity now to be able to have a conversation with them that is, well educated, and you're the expert on your business. Why not be the expert on your taxes? So we just, definitely want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable talking to a tax preparer. Now, just going to make a mention that at the very end of the presentation, I'm going to share some QR codes, and you can use those to register for free one-on-one business coaching. So it's a very valuable offering that's made possible from Decal. You get 30 minutes to speak with a business coach to discuss many different topics. When we get to those slides, you will see what those topics are. We've had great success working with providers such as yourself. If we're talking about tax education, it's to help with overlooked deductions. There are many financial foundation topics we can discuss. If you're all familiar with ERTC or FFCRA, the federal tax credits, we have coaching available for that. So at the end of the presentation, if you happen to have your phone available, there will be QR codes that will allow you to register for that one-on-one business coaching. I'm going to ask everyone to be very patient with us today. We obviously got started about 15 minutes behind, and we do know that for the purpose of your certificate, this needs to be a 1-hour course. So yes, we're going to have some questions and answers. I may just ask, if at all possible, please stay on as long as you can, and I will try to be as respectful of your time as possible. Thank you. All right, so why should you care about your taxes? Well, we want to stay out of trouble, right? We know it's a federal and state requirement, but you have to stop and think about it. What's in it for me? So what's in it for you? Tax time is the opportunity to make sure that all of that hard work that you've put in across the year, right, that it results in making sure that you keep as much of your money as possible, right? That's the idea, profit retention. We want you to be able to keep as much of your money as possible. I know that as childcare business owners, you often put the children first and you think about the businesses second. Thinking about the health of your business is crucial so that you can continue to care about the children and so that you can take care of yourself, right? Because if you aren't running a healthy, successful business, where will you be next year? So You deserve to take care of yourself. You deserve to have a profitable business, and tax time is a fantastic opportunity to really look at the financial health of your business and then retain some of that profit. So we're going to take the time to jump into taxes to make sure that everyone is better off because of it there. Now, risk mitigation, huge reason to care about taxes, because through careful, proper tax filing, we can avoid a lot of risk, right? So we can save ourselves a lot of anxiety, of worry, maybe even some legal consequences. So it's important that we minimize any risk that you may be exposed to, and having a proper understanding of how you file your taxes helps reduce the risk, right? So if we're not making mistakes, we are less likely to be audited. If we're handling everything exactly as required, we're less likely to be audited. We're mitigating that risk. So, and a great result of successful tax preparation is that it gives you the confidence to know that your business is doing well, right? So if your businesses are doing well, that knowledge lets you do a lot of different things. It lets you to be able to invest money back in the business. You may be able to pay yourself more. You may be able to build an emergency fund. So, having confidence that your business is going in the right direction really allows you to take control of your business. Knowing your taxes helps bring confidence to the picture. I do want to take a moment to discuss that what if after you've done your taxes, your business isn't as financially healthy as you would have liked, right? When you prepare your taxes, you get a very realistic picture of where your business is. And sometimes those taxes show us things that we don't like. Maybe we didn't realize we weren't as profitable, or maybe we had expenses that we hadn't controlled. So what we really want to do is understand that proper tax preparation is a step in the right direction to help you correct if your business is heading a little off course, right? We don't want our heads in the sand. We want to be well informed, prepared. We want to make the right type of decisions that we need to for the health of our business, and so that we have a very good understanding of where our business is at. So tax time brings a realistic picture of where you're at. And it's good to have that awakening. It's good to have that realistic picture. So I'd like everybody, if your taxes tend to tax time, perhaps you aren't seeing what you would like to see, or you're anticipating that the 2023 tax filing may not be in your favor, it'll give you the opportunity to take a look at that and figure out why. What is it that's not going right? So tax time is a fantastic opportunity to build our confidence, but it's also an opportunity to really delve in and find out what's going on in the business, right? Again, addressing business health, but also addressing areas that we might not normally be aware of. So I want to definitely take that into consideration. So first thing when we think about taxes is, how are we going to legally retain our profit and make more money? Proper tax filing can help us keep more money. So I don't want you to think of tax time as only a time when you have to pay money. I'd like you to think about it as a way to keep your money. It's very, very important. So we want to have that mindset, right? So how do we keep our money? Well, we maximize the amount of allowable legitimate expenses that we're allowed to deduct on our taxes. That's what it comes down to. When we look at the Schedule C, we're going to look at a Schedule C a little further into the presentation, and we can discuss some of those expenses, some things that you may be forgetting. You have to remember that there are expenses that are considered to be sunk costs. So what is a sunk cost expense? It's one that's already been incurred, right? It can't be recovered. So we know that there's an expense or an investment that you can't change or undo. We know rent and utilities are a given, but we want to think about, we have that cost, but what amount of that cost can we actually use as a deduction on our taxes? What can we take as an allowable expense. And all of those allowable expenses, what is the result? It lowers our tax liability, right? So it lowers the amount of money that we're going to be taxed on. Because if you are a sole proprietor, keep in mind that that profit, which is for a sole proprietor, is showed on line 31 of your Schedule C. That profit is what you're going to have that 15.3% self-employment tax. And then you're going to have your standard income tax. So the IRS looks at that number on line 31 after all of the deductions, and that's where that you're taxed on that for your self-employment tax. So in one way, right, we want to make sure that we have that number legitimately as low as possible, realistically as low as possible, following all of the rules and regulations still as low as possible. But one thing that I would like to bring up is that that number on line 31 of the Schedule C is the number that many loan officers or people that are looking into the profitability of your business, if you're looking for a mortgage, a car loan, things of that nature, if you're looking to buy a building for the business and you're a sole proprietor, maybe we're expanding and we're going to have a corporation and we're going to move forward. But this tax year, someone is looking at our taxes. The amount on line 31 of your Schedule C can affect the amount of financing that you're given. So that number needs to be realistic. No one is saying don't take all of the deductions that you're allowed. But if you have a tendency to bend the rules, which is not allowed, but if you have a tendency to do everything possible to lower that tax burden, keep in mind, if that number is not realistic on line 31 and you go to apply for a loan, there could be some questions. So you do just want to kind of keep in mind that you don't want to have any problems afterwards. And of course, everything that we do, we want to be legitimate and 100% compliant with the federal and state tax regulations. So that number shouldn't be artificial. Everything that you took should be allowable, right? You're not going to take anything that isn't, but just keep in mind that that number, right, is what loan officers and such will take a look at. So it's just kind of just to keep that in mind there. So let us jump on there to the next thing that we discussed, right, is reducing your risk of an audit. So the best way to avoid an audit is to keep in mind that there could be red flags, right? So when you file your taxes, there may be things that would be considered to be a red flag that the IRS sees and that triggers an audit. You could have information in the wrong place. You could be claiming a deduction that is not allowable. Perhaps they're honest mistakes, but if you're not well informed about where everything needs to be listed on your taxes, especially your Schedule C, if you're not familiar with what you are allowed to deduct, there are several categories on a Schedule C where where people may misinterpret what should go on each line, and those types of things can trigger an audit. So those are some of the things, but also what's something that could really trigger an audit, not including all of your income on your taxes. What if you left out a 1099 that you received, from the Child Care Resource and Referral Agency for your subsidy care? What if you left out one for the food program? It is a real red flag when the IRS has revenue reported income, income reported to them, and it's not reflected on your taxes. So they're huge red flag, huge potential for an audit. So I'd like everybody to keep in mind, not including all your income on your taxes, very much an opportunity to have an issue. Now, the next one, we said we are allowed, there are expenses that are allowable, and we should take those expenses. However, if you take expenses that are inflated, if you take expenses that you are not allowed, those trigger red flags, right? That's what the IRS is looking for when they're reviewing taxes, is they're looking to make sure that everything is legitimate. We had an interesting situation where we had spoken to a provider, and again, we do tax education coaching. So what is tax education coaching? It's when someone, a provider, sends us their previous year taxes. Our coach goes through them and looks for anything that, any expenses they may have missed, and looks for any place where perhaps they're putting the wrong information. So we're looking for missed opportunities. I see that there's a note here, Laura, excuse me, about the food program. So we'll talk about that. If they are saying that they're not required, of whatever food program you're participating in is not required to provide a 1099, then that is not being reported as income to the IRS in that manner. You'll want to be very careful about that. And you'll want to confirm that that is not being reported to the IRS in any manner as income. So just, you'll want to kind of keep that in mind. So we had a provider, well, in terms of the tax education, right? We get the taxes, we do the review, and we're looking for expenses they may have missed, and we're looking for things that may be in the wrong place, and helping them. Basically, we get together then with the provider with those taxes, and we go over what we found. And we actually have someone who tried to claim a $40,000 cell phone expense. $40,000 in a year. That must be some cell phone. We're not talking about a entire staff of cell phones, right? We're talking about one person tried to claim $40,000 in cell phone. We're going to assume that that was an honest mistake, right? That was an honest mistake. However, those are the kind of things, right, that could cause that really could cause a huge red flag. So want to be very, very careful, careful about that. Another red flag could potentially be if you are showing a loss, large loss, or any loss year after year after year on your taxes. Keep in mind, your businesses are going to take a loss from time to time. Unfortunately, they will. But keep in mind, the IRS looks at your business as being sustainable, right? You need to, in order to basically get the benefit of tax deductions and such, you need to be sustainable. And if you had a business claim large losses year after year after year, and we know the pandemic was an interesting situation and obviously not the norm. However, again, if we see something year after year, that can trigger an audit with the IRS. They look at that and they say, wow, how is this business existing if year after year they have a loss, right? So if you continue to lose more money than you earn, the IRS is really curious about why do you continue to operate the business. All right, so kind of keep that in mind. Another red flag, claiming 100% use of your business. So you may very, very well have a vehicle, a van, a bus, a car that's used 100% for your business. It's allowed. So you are allowed to take 100% of that expense if 100% use of that vehicle is related to the business. But if you have a vehicle, especially if you are a sole proprietor and you have a vehicle and you report that it's only used for work, and that could basically call attention to that. Now, you may have a vehicle, and obviously you're going to have all of the records that you need to be able to prove to the IRS if it does trigger an audit. You'll have everything that you need to be able to say, hey, these are all of my expenses, and this is proof that my vehicle is used 100% for business use only. However, if you are a sole proprietor sharing your vehicle, you would not want to basically claim and deduct 100% of your expenses, because if you're sharing that with personal use and business use, only a portion of that vehicle expense would be an allowable expense. And the IRS does look for that. So that is without a doubt something that you want to be very cautious of, that can raise a red flag. So by all means, think about that, right? So we're going to make sure that we're including all of our income on our taxes. We're going to make sure that our expenses are reasonable and allowable expenses. If we have a loss year after year, we know that's going to trigger something with the IRS. And we want to be very careful in the instance of the use of a vehicle. So all of those can be triggers for the IRS for audits. And we want to avoid audits in every way possible. They are time consuming, they can be very costly, they are extremely stressful. So the idea of really looking into reducing your risk of an audit, it's highly, highly recommended. It's not something you would want to go through. All right, so this is one of the more important parts is now assessing business health. So what do we mean by assessing business health? Well, we're going to take all of the information that we've gotten together. We're going to have all of our expenses. We're going to have all of our income. We're going to have everything. And we're going to start to look at that bottom line once we've made those adjustments, right? So tax time, we're gathering all of that information together. And now you get a really eye-opening look at the profitability of your business. So did your business make money? What is the health of your business? This is a great way that if you see something that you did not expect, how are we going to plan for that next year? So it's about determining the health of your business and then planning going forward, because there will be things revealed when you do your taxes. And this is why I always say that even if you have a tax preparer, you need to be informed. You need to be well aware. You need to look at these numbers yourself. You don't want to just hand a shoebox of receipts over to someone and say, here you go. You want to be very well informed yourself. And some of what we talk about today, you're going to be doing this for the 2023 tax year, but perhaps it's going to help you plan for 2024 to be more organized, to get those things together, to be looking at them on a more regular basis, right? Evaluating the health of your business. What are your expenses? Are you profitable? Are there areas where you could have cut back? Things like that. Are there areas where you could increase your revenue? Maybe you take a look and you say, wow, this year I don't have any expense for marketing. Maybe that's why I didn't grow my enrollment this year. Wait a second, why? That's an allowable expense. I'm looking at my business expenses and I don't have that. I would be able to take that as a deduction. I don't have it. What was the result with my business because of that? Where were we because of that? So keeping things in mind like that, right? We want to make sure that we are showing what you are spending your money on. How much does it cost for you to run your business there? And basically that gives us this year, right? 2023. But as we go into 2024, we can start to compare, right? We'll compare 2022 to 2023. We'll have 2024 data and we'll start to look and compare. But once you get used to really looking at those numbers on a regular basis, right? You need a budget, you need to make sure that you have an accurate cash flow, that you're looking at things like that. That all of those financial foundations and all of those financial processes lead themselves to what you discover when you do your taxes. So we want to make sure that we are taking those into consideration throughout the year, right? So that it's not just at tax time, but maybe this year, maybe we didn't do everything that we're going to do next year, and next year how we're going to continually track the success of our business. And that way tax time is not a surprise and that we are well prepared. So you do want to take that, take that into consideration, right? A trend of data is a very valuable thing to have, to see the trends. Could be year over year, but as you know, right, especially with a cash flow, looking at things month to month, 6 months, having a 6-month budget and being able to tie that into the cash flow, looking at your profit and loss statement on a regular basis. all of that, right? Making sure that you are accounting for everything throughout the year. Let this be the reminder, hey, we're the first full week of January. Now's the time to get set up with those successful business practices so that next year when we file for 2024, we already know exactly where we're going to be. So assessing business health, huge benefit to doing your taxes. All right, so there are a lot of different tax forms, right? Many different tax forms. Now, if you are a sole proprietor, your income is reported on the Schedule C form, and that is part of your personal 1040 tax return. If you have more than one business and they're not closely related, you will end up having more than one Schedule C. So an example would be you have your childcare business, but you also have a craft business on Etsy, and you drive for Uber or Lyft, right? There's going to be more than one Schedule C. Those types of businesses are not equatable with one another. Therefore, we are going to have individual Schedule Cs. So keep that in mind. You may have more than one Schedule C. So you have to kind of stop and think about that. There's 5 parts to the Schedule C, but that very beginning, the first and the second part, boy, are they important, right? So the very first thing is on a Schedule C, as we gather every bit of revenue, every bit of income, we look for any way that we were paid. We look for deposit slips. We look at payment apps like a Venmo, or Zelle or something of that nature. You take a look at all of that. You look again at any program that is paying you via 1099. Any program that is paying you and is telling you that this must be claimed as a source of income is providing both you and the IRS with proof of that income. So there is, in some way, that is being reported, and it needs whatever they are giving the IRS reporting as income, they need to provide you with that. So you'll want to keep that in mind. So as a sole proprietor with the Schedule C, that top portion there is listing all of the revenue, and that includes cash, right? You are accountable for cash. You need to include that. The object of proper tax preparation. I see there's a quick note here, Lisa, where you mentioned grants. Yeah, so keep in mind that money is taxable. That's income. But when you take off the percentage, and I'm jumping all over the place, but when you take off the percentage of tax that's owed to that, you still came out ahead. You still had money that you would not have otherwise received. So I always feel bad when someone thinks about grant money and they say, oh, but I had to, what good is it? It was taxed. Well, you still got to keep a large portion of that money. And you just want to kind of take that into consideration. But yes, grant funding is income and does need to be declared. So you'll want to keep that in mind. I know a lot of agencies that were involved in the issuing of grant money, of ARPA funds and such, did a nice job of educating childcare providers and reminding them that they were going to need to set aside a certain portion of that funding for taxes, because it is still our responsibility as businesses being run in the United States that we have to pay our fair share of taxes, and that is considered to be income. So Lisa, yeah, it's tough, right? It's a tough thing when we have to, but thank you for bringing it up, because you do need to claim all of the funding that you receive. That's taxable income. So that top part there of our Schedule C, all about all of the income. Then the next part, little longer, right? So it's lengthier, has a lot more lines, and this is where people sometimes get tripped up. That's where you're showing on a Schedule C, showing all of your expenses. So those are what's an expense, right? It's the things that you paid for that keep your business running. That's what an expense is. It's the money that you put into your business to keep it running. Those are the expenses, right? And we gather all of those legitimate expenses, and we make sure on the Schedule C that those expenses are put in the correct place. We make sure that we're not claiming anything that we're not allowed to. But we also make sure that we're claiming everything that we are allowed to, right? So that's part of the Schedule C, is making sure that we are taking every type of allowable expense into consideration. So once we've done that, we've got all the revenue, right? We have all of those expenses. We calculate the profit that remains there. And if it's positive, you made a profit. And if it's negative, you had a loss. We all know that, right? And we talked about sometimes there are going to be losses. Sometimes you'll look at line 31 of the Schedule C, which is especially true if you're in the first year or so of starting a business and you see a negative the first time you do your taxes, and you may be very, very concerned. Keep in mind, it's not uncommon for a business in the first year of business, because of all of your startup costs, to reflect a loss. So if there is anyone participating tonight, listening in, who has started a new business, keep in mind when you go to do your taxes, you're going to have a lot of expenses this past tax year that you will not have going into the future. Those are expenses for your startup. Those expenses, you're not going to have those every single year, right? We want to kind of keep that in mind. So if you were to start a new business and see less profit than you expected or a loss, it's not that unusual to see that in the first year of business. But keep in mind, right, we always our goal, right, is to always have more income, less taxes, and to show profit, right? So we want to make sure that we are taking any deduction that is allowed. So purpose of the Schedule C: profit, revenue, expenses, profit. So we want to kind of keep all of that in mind. All right, so Schedule C. Let's take a little bit of a closer look. And the reason that we like to do this is it's not uncommon for business owners to simply hand over everything to a tax preparer and never give a really, really good look at what is coming back to them, never really going over. Just because you've hired a tax professional doesn't mean that they are well-versed in the childcare world. We'll talk about, the questions you can ask a tax preparer at the very end of the presentation. But many, many times it is hard for childcare providers to find tax preparers that are truly educated on being able to, are truly educated on preparing childcare business taxes. So it is a very good idea that when you get that information back, one, you need the knowledge. You go to that tax preparer knowing your stuff, right? Things we're going to learn here today, you're going to have confidence. You're going to go there, you're going to know the right questions to ask, but you're also going to have everything prepared for them. Be very well aware of what are allowable expenses, what aren't. And then when that comes back to you, you're going to go over it. You're going to review it. So I said my piece about once you hand taxes over to someone, about making sure that upon their return, upon the receipt of those, that you are, really going over what it is actually that they did there. So Schedule C, right? We have those different sections, right? Part 1, we said that's where your sales are totaled. Great. Everything is there. We mentioned we're going to dig for every possible form of revenue that we can think of there. And then part 2, where those expenses are reported. So there are over a dozen categories of expenses listed on the Schedule C to help you stay organized. I mentioned advertising. Let's go over some of, like, when I do these tax education seminar, or I should say tax education coaching, when I do that, what are things that I see? Well, I see people forgetting to put down advertising. I see people forgetting to claim their liability insurance, right? Which seems kind of crazy. I also, I do always question the automobile expense, the transportation expense that they are expensing. When I start to look at the Schedule C as far as home childcare providers, what does your time space calculation look like? So that is something that you definitely need to bring into when we're talking about expenses. We definitely want to make sure that we are thinking about time, space, and business use of home. we're going to discuss expenses, so we can get into that a little bit there, but there are many, many expenses that it's surprising, shocking how many people either underreport, forget to report, do not report in the wrong place. So part 2 is where those expenses are there. And then of course, line 31, as we mentioned, is where your profit is calculated. So keep in mind, right, as we said before, right, there's self-employment tax, line 31. Line 31 is where that self-employment tax, that's the number that you are going to pay that 15.3% self-employment tax on. Line 31, right? Again, we're going to be paying that. And then we're going to be paying our income tax, because we're, as sole proprietors, we're going to be including that in with our personal tax filing. So that's one of the reasons why, right, when we look at line 31, the lower the number, the less self-employment tax we're going to be paid, as long as that number is legitimate, is accurate. And again, there are many expenses that you are well deserving of. So you want to be able to claim that. There's no reason not to. So just kind of keeping that in mind. I don't want to discourage anybody from not claiming expenses that they are due. So, all right, that first section, that revenue section, right? All about the revenue, all about how much money that you took in. Now, if you have an accounting system, this could be really easy. Getting your revenue, you've been entering that all along. That is a number that you know, boom, you can pull a report and you have it. Fantastic. But if you don't have an accounting system, or you haven't perhaps been using the accounting system to the best of its ability, there you can still make a worksheet. You can Google, basically Google profit and loss worksheet, or revenue worksheet would probably be the best thing. Excuse me. In this portion, we'll want to do a revenue worksheet and start to pull and record all of the forms of revenue. Now, we mentioned 1099s, right? So subsidy payments, participation in the child and adult food care program. There's a situation with payment apps that you may have heard about, and there was a change late in 2023. So all throughout 2023, all we heard about is that if we had a payment through one of the payment apps like Venmo or Cash App, all we heard is that if we had a payment of $600 or more, the IRS was going to receive, we were going to receive a 1099, and that income was being reported directly to the IRS. And we thought that was the case throughout of 2023, and it was. And then in November of 2023, the IRS came back and said, hey, you know what? We're going to suspend that. We're not going to do the $600 this year. We're going to be putting that off, and it's going to be revisited. So while I do suggest that you research what the most current rules are, and you can find that on the IRS website, keep in mind, if you've been thinking those $600 payments, I'm going to receive a 1099, you will not be, because this has changed, and they already know what 2024 is, what 2023 is, what 2024 is. They have the picture of what 2025 is, but those are all subject to change. It's one of the reasons why you want to keep on top of new tax laws and things that change. Now, we're not going to receive 1099s for those over $600 payments. Still have to count that as revenue. Just because we didn't receive a 1099 doesn't mean that it isn't income. But one thing you do want to make sure, though, is that you are collecting the 1099s that you receive, right? You're going to want to make sure that you have all of your bank records, any documents you have, right? Any receipt that you've given a parent because they have made payment, any document that you have yourself. So weekly receipts, monthly receipts. We're going to get all of that information together. Again, if you have an accounting system, this is a no-brainer. You've been doing it all along. If you haven't, Google revenue worksheet. It's a very, very simple spreadsheet, but it could be also in the form of an Excel sheet, which does calculations for you. So just does that running total, just keeps adding up what my revenue is. because we don't want to leave anything on the table. What did we say? What triggers audits? Underreporting revenue. The IRS knows, for the most part, what your revenue was, and you need to make sure that you are claiming that accordingly. So, we're going to make sure that you do that. You account for how much money did you make. What's next? Expenses. How much money did I spend? So now that you have your business income, we've gathered that all together. We're going to collect all of the expenses. What did we spend all of our money on in 2023? You want to have records of all of your costs, right? Receipts showing payment for expenses or canceled checks, invoices, credit card and bank records. You could use those. So when you think about a proof of an expense, if you were ever to be audited, what does the IRS look for in terms of proof of an expense? They look that you paid the expense, they look for the amount that you paid, the date that you paid it, and a description of the item or the service. So that's really, if you were ever audited, that's what the IRS is looking for in every expense receipt that you would provide. Now, if they're utility bills, fantastic, we have that. And usually on a utility bill, it tells you that you paid the previous month and now this is this month's balance, and you have everything there that they're asking for. Keep in mind that if you are claiming mileage, right, you need to either use a mileage app that you would be able to download those files, a handwritten mileage log. Those are ways that we're going to be showing legitimate business expenses, right? So when I used to be in sales, and the handwritten logs were the thing, and now everybody is like, nope, it's all about apps. And those apps are really, really accurate in helping you track business versus personal use. Of course, if you are a business with no personal use, you still need to be able to account for your mileage. You still need to be able to account for what those business trips were for. You're still keeping records. So even if that vehicle is 100% use, you are going to want to have legitimate, accurate records. So this is where record keeping comes into play, making sure that you have that. So we've looked into everything that we have that we've spent there. What we're going to do is we are going to collect all of those receipts. We're going to review our credit card bills. We're going to go to those payment apps, take a look at that, the bank statements there. Then, just as, again, you have a bookkeeping system, boom, it's there. We run a report. Here are all of our expenses. Fantastic. Now, what if we don't? Well, we're going to Google, once again, an expense worksheet. Usually it's very simple, very, very simple Excel spreadsheet that will go ahead and walk us through everything that we are able to expense. It kind of will allow us to fill in those expenses there. So once you have that information, you would then be able to go to the Schedule C and start to fill out all of the expenses, right? You'll be able to go ahead and do that. So very, very important that we keep all of those expenses together, and that we are ready for filling out the Schedule C. Now, we'll go back in terms of Schedule C, right? I mentioned time-space calculation, and it's really, really important that you know about, if you are a sole proprietor and you are using your home for business, that you are well aware of the home expenses that you can claim, and you are well aware of the concept of exclusive use space and regular use space. So that is how time space, basically the calculation that's taken into consideration, that is used whenever you have an expense that's shared between your business and your personal life, right? That's what the time space calculation is all about. That is how any business owner who is operating their business out of their home, that is how they are going to determine what percentage of that shared expense they are able to claim. They're also going to be taking into consideration exclusive use. And that means that there's an area of my home that is only used for my childcare business and no personal use whatsoever. that's an exclusive use space. And when I measure that space and I take that space and I divide it by the amount of square footage in my home, that particular square footage, the expenses that are allowed within our time space calculation, we add that space percentage to the time space calculation that we've done with these spaces that are shared, all those shared areas. And those two numbers come together to form your time space calculation so that you know what percentage you're actually able to use. Now, keep in mind when you have any business, basically you are only including the expenses that are directly related to the business. And the IRS defines a direct expense as one that is incurred exclusively for the business and provides no personal benefit. So think about that definition. Incurred exclusively for the business, provides no personal benefit. So let's talk about what a direct expense could be if you're using your home. So let's say that you are fixing a bathroom that's only used by children. Direct expense, that's a business expense. It is in that particular instance, that space turns out to be an exclusive use space. That is an expense that is incurred exclusively for the business, has no personal benefit whatsoever. If I have an area where the children play and I get a brand new rug, well, that's a business expense, right? That I needed that rug for nap time, or I needed that rug, for playtime. Let's say I need that. Now, if that rug happened to be in a space that's shared with my family, my time space percentage would come into calculation as to how much of that expense I could actually claim. So how much of that rug could I claim? Well, it is legitimately used for business, but it's also used by my family. And I'm not going to be able to expense the 100% the cost of that particular expense because it is shared use between business and home. So those are things where time space comes into into consideration. If you had playground equipment that are not used for your family at all, your children aren't using the playground equipment, right? That's 100% of an expense that is directly related to your business. So that there is an allowable expense there. Now, if you had indirect costs like homeowners insurance, electric costs, those are the things that where time space comes into play, right? That's the business use of home, and the business use of home, that time space calculation that you come up with is used to calculate the amount of expenses you're able to take on your Schedule C. So you do have those shared expenses with the home and the business. So we want to kind of keep in mind, and we can, if anyone has any questions about time space, I'm more than happy to answer those. We have reached 8 o'clock. Please keep in mind, we got a very late start, 17 after, and for your credit requirement for your certification, we do need to do as close to an hour as absolutely possible. I'm going to keep going. I will obviously let DECAL know that we did start late, but if anybody could please hang in there. I don't want there to be a question about your eligibility for your certificate. So, all right. So if anybody does have any questions about time space, by all means, please put them in the chat. And if we have the time, we'll go over them. If not, again, my email address, jennifer@civstrat.com, is in the chat. So you should feel welcome to go ahead and use that to reach out to me if we don't get to a question that you have there. So keep in mind now, right, you're going to want to keep, I've got all of my revenue, I've got all of my expenses. You're going to hold on to those documents, not just for this tax season, right? We need them for this tax season, but you're going to hold on to them for at least 4 years. So when you give that information over to a tax preparer, they need to be giving it back to you. You hand over those receipts, if they're the ones doing all of the adding, they need to give that information back to you because the IRS can come back to you, and the recommended time to hold on to business receipts of such would be for 4 years. So if you have paper copies, fantastic, but you could take pictures with your phone. And that way, if you don't get those back from a tax preparer, you've got the picture on your phone. If you were ever, God forbid, to be audited, you would have that information there. So keep that, keep in mind that you are going to want to keep records of all of that revenue and records of all of those expenses, and make sure that you are keeping that all for your own use, for your own records for the next 4 years. So, all right, so we've talked about Schedule C, right? And we talked about gathering all of our revenue, gathering all of our expenses, what that kind of looks like on line 31 of the Schedule C. But what do I do next, right? I'm a tax, it's time for me to file my taxes. What are my next steps? You're going to have 2 options, right? You've got the ability to go to a tax preparer, and you have the ability to self-prepare your taxes. So you do have those options there. So if we are using a tax preparer, keep in mind they are a guide, right? So they are able to walk you through the process along the way. If they are up and on the up and up, they will keep you informed. They will keep you involved. They will ask you a lot of questions. If you've ever gone to a great tax preparer, they ask you a million questions, and that's because there are a lot of some things that they're trying to clarify and uncover. So they can be a guide not only for this tax season, but for the tax season to come. They could help walk you through the year if they're available. A negative, a tax preparer could be expensive, and if you haven't budgeted for it, that could be a difficult cost, right, at that particular time. Keep in mind that it is an allowable business expense, so that when we go to expense our expenses for the following tax year, our business tax preparer is going to be an allowable expense. So just keep that in mind. Some tax preparers do provide advice. Some of them are able to give you counsel. So, just keep that in mind. Those are some good reasons to use a tax preparer. Self-preparation, well, you'll see a note here that says the guide is extra. What we're talking about is if you were to use something like TurboTax, there are additional charges for additional support. And when they talk about the guide is extra, the more support you need with something like TurboTax or Intuit, the more more support you need, the more money that you are going to end up paying. So you want to keep that in mind. Less expensive, almost always less expensive. Even, you're buying that version, still almost always less expensive than a tax preparer. So there's a benefit there. Now, you may find this last bullet point to be a little odd. Can be more accurate. Well, remember I said that it's really hard sometimes to find a tax preparer who understands childcare businesses. Once you learn as a sole proprietor, once you learn the ins and outs of the Schedule C, right? Once we're very well aware of that, we have probably more information and we know more about our taxes than some tax preparers. That's not all tax preparers, but it is really, really hard sometimes to find someone. We're going to go over some questions that you can ask, but the knowledge that you gain from really understanding what is on your Schedule C by really looking over past Schedule Cs, right? We talked about data trends. Looking into the past is a fantastic way of looking forward as well, right? So that we look and see where we've been, and then we see where we are, and we see where we're going. Really taking that into consideration, the fact that you may know just as much as a tax preparer about your particular situation as they do, that's where we say that it may be more accurate. The beauty of some of these tax, like TurboTax, these tax programs, is it walks you through step by step by step. So really don't feel intimidated by something like TurboTax. It has the ability to work with you on the Schedule C, to fill out the Schedule C. It asks you some very, very relevant questions. So you will want to kind of keep in mind that that may be an option for you. So self-preparation may be an option. All right. Questions for a paid preparer. So if I'm going to use a paid preparer, are they qualified, right? What kind of training did they receive? Are they familiar with childcare businesses, similar childcare businesses to mine? Do they work with centers? Do they work with home providers? You can start to ask individuals, other business owners in your community, other childcare business owners, who they use for their tax preparation. Do they understand about time space? When I do tax tax education and I review tax returns that have been filled out by by tax preparers who are perhaps not familiar with time space, some of the things that I see, the errors are egregious. And usually it is, one, it's either going to trigger an audit, or two, you're leaving a ton of money on the table. So it can be very hard to find that paid preparer. Remember we talked about guidance and that they can guide you along the way and that they may be available for advice after the fact. So, you'll want to ask that, can you reach out to them? What kind of support could you get if you were audited? What kind of information can they share with you? Are they available if you have questions throughout the year for the 2024 tax season? Keep all of that, keep that in mind. And then finally, you are entitled to a copy of your return. You have to hold on to those. Do not engage with a tax preparer who is not going to give you back your documents and give you the copy of your return, right? Very, very crucial. But Civitas was involved in overseeing an expansion initiative in a state which required people to provide us with copies of past year taxes. And we would over and over and over again have childcare providers who could not locate a copy of their taxes. And in a lot of instances, if you have a tax preparer that doesn't provide support throughout the year, they kind of disappear until next tax season. And how are you going to get that if you needed it? We had a lot of people that couldn't provide basic tax information to us. It was really unfortunate. So you're always going to want to get back that, your taxes, the copy of your taxes, all of your documents. So just keep that in mind if you're using a paid tax preparer. Self-preparation. Okay. Well, it says free here, but we're talking about, let's say, using TurboTax, right? So we're going to be making an investment in a tax program. TurboTax walks you through your Schedule C. Super, super easy. There are screenshots that compare, that basically walk you through how to do things. It's not difficult at all. So TurboTax is great, but I have something that is free that does include even better, or I shouldn't say even better, but does include instructions that is easy to use for your Schedule C. So if everybody just wants to bear with me, I'm going to pull up something that is not shown in this presentation. Just bear with me. And what I'm going to do, and anyone should feel free themselves if you want to go to this site. I promise that I did have this pulled up. Everyone just bear with me here. Because what this is that this is a guide that can walk you through preparing your taxes. I'm going to pull this over. And this is what it looks like. So it is an online tax preparation guide for childcare businesses. So it is free. It has screenshots. It can walk you through. Civitas, the company for whom I work and who is working with Decal on our presentation tonight, has created this. And there's a lot of information here, pages and pages. It's got screenshots. It has some things that you can use as worksheets. So this would be a very, very vital. In fact, what we'll do is I will put that in the chat right now. And that is something that we by all means. Oh, and I see somebody, Lisa was saying that she uses H&H Block, which is great too. All right. So if you want to copy that link that's there, that will allow you to go ahead and see that guide. And it really is helpful. It's free. It walks you through everything. So that's an easy self-preparation. So you could be using, H&R Block, you can be using TurboTax, you could be using Intuit, but you can also then take this guide, right? For everything that TurboTax does, take a look at this guide and see if you can use it. It can help you prepare to speak to your tax preparer. It can help you put together all the information you need for your Schedule C. So by all means, still consider using this guide, take a look at it, right? It's a free guide. There's no reason not to take a look. So, all right, I'm going to go in and OLT.com. Thank you, Lisa. So everybody take a look at the chat because Lisa has let us know that OLT.com is free and easy to use. Lisa, I'm not familiar with it, but thank you so much for sharing that. So I appreciate that. I'm just going through to see if we have any questions. Feel free to put any questions in the chat that you may have. I'll also, a reminder in case anyone joined us late, we do need you to put your name and your PDS number, please, in the chat so that you can get your certificate, so that Decal can put that together as fast as possible. And you could also include your business name if you don't mind. And if you are someone joining in along with someone, please, by all means, put the second person's name and PDS number in there. It's okay if you are not live on this. We're going to be providing Decal with all of this information. What is a PDS number? Luann asked. So I don't know if anybody wants to answer in the chat, but it is something within Georgia, right, that you would have to have for your certificate. So if anybody wants to give me the definition of the PDS number, that would be very, very helpful. You're all helping me out here. Let's see. Well, it looks like we had a lot of Spanish providers today. There we go. And Laura, getting back to that, there's got to be some proof of that revenue, of that being reported as income. So if you have to report as income, somebody has some records for you to go about recording that as revenue, because it's being as income, it's being reported to the IRS as such. So on there. Okay, so Seema had a question. Does interest on savings go in a 1040 Schedule C gross income, not on a 1040? So is that interest, my question would be, is that interest a business only account? Is it a business account that you use regularly to draw funds from for the business, or is it a personally held account that is on your 1040? If it's on your 1040, let's face it, interest, you're declaring one way or the other. But if that's an account that is not related to your business, has not been set up as a business account, the interest on there, you're going to claim it one way or the other, but in that particular situation, it would not be on your Schedule C. So if you do have, oops, we have more messages going on here. No, it's personal. Okay, Seema. So in that instance, it's not going to involve your Schedule C at all. It will just be where you claim your interest as income, where you claim your interest income on your 1040 there. Oh, thank you, Laura. So Laura's letting us know, right, that the PDS number is a professional profile for educators and providers. So I appreciate that, Laura. Thank you. You're a huge help to everyone joining us tonight there. So Laura has said, I keep records of that, but they've told me each year that they do not provide a 1099 and that they don't have to. So weird, Laura. I'm honestly not sure. You have my email address, so jennifer@civstrat.com. If you don't mind reaching out to me after the presentation, just letting me know which food program it is, and I'm more than happy to pick the brain of Gary Romano. He's the owner of Civitas Strategies, and Gary often can give us some guidance as to what you would do at that particular time. So, how you should be handling that there. I see we have a note here from Tony that you could not get into your account. Okay, Tony, could you also, Tony, somewhere within that chat, would you also put the business name for me in there? And thank you for including your email, but we will pass that along to Decal there. Someone said, oh, did somebody, oh, so what's happening here is that at least we do have folks that haven't put the things in the chat, that they haven't put it to everyone. They've put it only to the hosts and the panelists, right? Which is a secure way of making sure that you are not sharing your any information that you don't want to share with everyone. But I'm just looking through. So I did copy and paste Lisa's mention of the free and easy site that she uses there. Just kind of looking to see here. And if anybody actually wants to come off of mute, if you'd like to come off of mute to ask any questions, and then OLT.com is what Lisa had put in the chat for hosts and panelists. And I'm so sorry that that I didn't see that was just for hosts and panelists. So I added it to the chat for everyone. And I'm just kind of jumping over here, just taking a look if there's any questions. Are owners' draws taxable? So LaToya, you are an LLC filing as an S Corp. If you want to come off mute, we could talk about that. And if not, LaToya, maybe you're not, if you're not with us right now, again, my email is jennifer@civstrat.com. Do you mind emailing me and we can talk offline about owner's draws if you are filing, if you're an LLC filing as an S Corp, in terms of what the tax picture looks like for owner's draws? I'd be more than happy. I have information that I could send you that would be far more coherent than what I would explain tonight. So LaToya, if you happen to still be on with us, by all means, please just email me and I will get you that information on owner's draws so that we can break down what is taxable, what isn't taxable, to what extent, what types of taxes do you pay, whether it's self-employment versus income tax. We can go over all of that, LaToya, so if you don't mind. And what I'll do here is I will put my email address in the Q&A as well. I'm just looking to see, do I have anybody else? Oh, so here we go. So how do you file the subsidies from COVID that we received, right? So if we're talking about the ARPA money, it is income, and it was reported to the IRS as income. So if that's what we're referring to, it is income, and you do have to include that as income. I don't have a Schedule C in front of me. This is, yep, and Janeth, I'll put my email, I'm putting it to everyone, because if we don't get the chance to go over this. And I appreciate everybody hanging in there with me today. I did ask my TA and she said it is not required to show it as income. And Seema, what are we referring to? Are we referring to and again, take yourself off mute, hun, if you would like, but are we referring to the federal funding that you would have received? Or are we referring to, just kind of curious what your TA was, what you were referring to? And is it possible, if somebody can't take themselves off mute, would you please let me know? I wasn't the person that set this up, so I don't know what they allowed. I'm just taking a look to see if there's anything we can do there. I don't know how to unmute Seema, so let's just take a look. Let me find you in participants and take a look here and put down allow to talk, because everybody sets these things up a little differently. All right, Seema, let's see if I can hear you now, huh?
Hi, I have a question, and my question is that some money some grant we received as material, not as cash, and that you can buy the material with it, and didn't get the 1099 for it.
Okay,
So do we still have to show it as an income in the Schedule C? Because I did ask my TA about it, and she said that you don't need to show it as income. So I just want to confirm it.
My understanding is you would be showing it as income because you would then be showing the cost of those materials as expenses, right? So that offsets if we're doing that in the same year. So if we basically have, we do not get 1099s for those because we never received funds for that. They were deposited into our account. So you do have the amount of the deposit. So the IRS, those numbers have been reported. And my understanding is, and again, Seema, grab my email address. Let's reach out after. We're starting to run late to the point where maybe Georgia would be concerned that I was keeping you folks for so long. So what we will have everybody do at this point is, why it's deposited into a third party, not personal accounts. Laura, let's Okay, here Laura is saying she may be talking about her quality rated TA and the grants associated with quality rated. Those grants were products we could purchase. Okay, so I'm going to definitely need to look into that. That's a question for Gary, and it's a question regarding Georgia that I am not familiar with. So what will happen is we will respond back to DECAL, and DECAL will reach out to you, and we will find out in terms of quality rated. I apologize. I never guess, right? So if I'm not sure, I'm not going to even go there. So
Yeah, and recently we received another grant amount which was in the wallet, a class wallet. We didn't get the money directly in our hand, but through class wallet we could purchase the items for the daycare. So please ask
interesting.
about that too.
Okay, I will find out about that because I honestly don't know. So thank you, Seema. I don't know about that. So funds that were placed into the wallet for you to make specific purchases. So I need to find out more about that, and I will share that then back. I'm making the notes for myself to share that back with DECAL and with the individuals at Civitas Strategies who can get me the answers, and then also the people that work with DECAL. So. All right, we have run quite a bit over even the 15 or 17 minutes that we got started late there. Wrap up and reflection, right? Let's just make sure that we all understand that we talked about why it's important to care about our taxes, that you have an accurate financial picture of your business, that you're taking advantage of all the tax benefits that come your way as a small business owner. We talked about the Schedule C, right? So remember about being able to successfully walk through a Schedule C, to know your taxes inside and out, to make sure that your tax preparer is someone that you can trust, that you can go into it. By learning what we're talking about tonight, you get to go into a conversation well informed. So that is something that really is very, very crucial. And we know that this time of the year, right, you're going to put together that plan to gather all these financials, and that's going to help you in 2024 because you're going to end up with a plan that you're going to follow all throughout 2024 for your 2024 tax filings when 2025 comes up there. So, we did talk about making sure that if you file yourself, going to file your taxes yourself, there are options. There are options obviously with the tax preparers there, but feel confident that if you do decide to go forward with filing your own taxes, you can. It's not, there are tools out there to help you. Everybody should look at that guide. Just take a look at that guide there. So what I do have here on the screen right now are QR codes regarding the free half-hour free one-on-one business coaching that DECAL has made available in conjunction with Civitas Strategies. So we have coaches on our team. This here are one-on-one business topics such as financial foundation, sales and marketing, recruitment, retention, revenue streams and growth, mitigating risk. I don't know if anyone is familiar with the small studies that are going on, the individual studies. I will get to the slide where we can see for DECAL where you can go to the website to find out about some of the exciting things that are happening. But free one-on-one FFCRA and ERTC coaching. So if you are at all familiar with the Employee Retention Tax Credit or the Family's First Coronavirus Response Act, we have free one-on-one coaching about that. If you have applied for the ERTC and you have some questions regarding whether your claim was whether you were eligible, our coaches can speak to you about that. There's now what's called the IRS's ERTC Voluntary Disclosure Program, which is allowing people who incorrectly filed their ERTC, is allowing them to repay money, to repay 80%. So 20% of the money that they were paid was actually being forgiven. So by all means, please, you can use this QR code to register for ERTC. And then this is one of my favorites. This is the one-on-one tax education coaching that I was discussing before. So what that really will allow you to do is you will be sending into a confidential, secure email, basically, that is set up for you to send your taxes for the previous year. Our tax coaches look at those taxes, and we look for areas where we think you may have missed deductions, areas where we feel that perhaps you've put the deductions in the wrong place, or things that we know happen to be red flags. So we actually, for free, go through your Schedule C. We don't look at your personal portion of your taxes, but we would be looking at your Schedule C. We would be looking at any of your S Corp forms. We can be taking a look at those, depreciation, any additional expense information that you supply, that you would supply to a tax preparer. We're able to look over all of that, and it's free. Again, you have to do a little work in the beginning, and the fact that you're going to send us your tax information, again, confidential, it's very, very secure. And then we use that to our coaches before we meet with you. We go through and we do the analysis. So I'm one of the people that does both the ERTC and the tax education business coaching. So you have my email address. If you happen to have any questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. The tax education to me is such a bargain. And maybe I look at your taxes and everything's perfect and I get to kind of give you that virtual high five and off you go and everything is great. Or maybe I see an opportunity that could help you this year. So what we want you to do is you'll see here a note, register for small study groups, right? So small study groups are turning out to be this fantastic ability for a small group of childcare providers to get together to learn about these topics, which also happen to be the topics that we have one-on-one coaching on. But these particular topics in these small study groups have ended up being very, very enjoyable. Participants are loving them. They're registering for additional small study groups. So it's been really, really exciting. You do see the decal on the decal.ga.gov/thriving. Go there because you can find all the self-study guides. There'll be more information on webinars, and it will allow you to register for the small study groups. Those small study groups are actually capped at 10 participants. We're going to continue them through August of 2024. They dive into some great topics, and then something that's exciting is that if you can get, by participating, you can get some state-approved training hours. And while I don't have all of the details, there is also a $300 stipend that you can receive for participating in a small study group and completing a small study group track. So just keep that in mind, head over to that website and take a look there. I'm going to go back into the questions. Class wallet was third party, thank you. Okay. Can I show the first one again? Latoya, real quick, put in the message. What are we talking about? There was at 1029, so that would have been, we're talking about this, the childcare business coaching, the QR code. What I'll do is I'll go slow through there. So if anybody, that one, thank you, Latoya, I appreciate that. Yep, there you go. So you can use that to go ahead and register for any of the topics shown there. It's really easy to register. You'll end up seeing the calendars for our business coaches. And again, if you had any questions on that, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. It's my team that does the business coaching. So exciting there, but definitely by all means. Yes, it is. Nora, you hung in there, my friend. By all means, everyone is more than welcome to jump off. You will receive your certificate. You've basically completed and then some, a few minutes over. So I appreciate everybody understanding the late start. That was a bit of a little mishap on our part, not on Decal's part. And so I do appreciate everyone joining us this evening. Feel free to jump off. I will stay on. Oh, you're very welcome, everyone, saying thank you. So you're so welcome, but it is just fine if you leave. I'm also going to stay on here for just a couple more minutes in case someone has a question. You could always just tell me that you'd like there. Oh, thank you, Nora. So glad that you joined us again. I apologize for the late start, everyone, and I appreciate you staying a little over. So that really did help me, and I'm able to give all this information to Decal so they can get your certificates. So do that. I'll stay on for a little bit. Oh, thanks, Tony. Appreciate that.
Hi, Miss Jennifer. You said that once we sign up for this one-on-one one business coaching on any topic, so that half an hour will be during the daytime, or it will be after,
So
like,
what you'll
hours?
see, yeah, is that it'll show the calendar of my coaches' available times. So usually though it is business hours, a lot of people do it during nap time, to be honest with you. There are some early, if someone does not find hours that work for them, they can email me and I can certainly see if we can get a coach to stay late, or if it's a topic that I coach on, to see if I could stay late or come in earlier, right? We could, do that, make those phone calls. But when you go to register, when you use that QR code, you will end up, you choose the topics and someone from our team gets back to you with a registration link. And with that registration link, you are able to choose a time, hopefully that works for you. If you don't see anything, you do have the opportunity to let me know that there wasn't anything that worked for you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Seema. I hope to see you in business coaching. That would be fantastic. See, we still have a few folks that hung on there. I'm just going through Q&A. Luann said, I'm sorry. So we have a few. So do LLC centers need to file or even pay taxes? Absolutely, Summer. So we today were really concentrating on home childcare providers, but LLCs, absolutely. There are no businesses that don't have to file taxes. LLCs, if they are an LLC not filing as an S corporation, very taxes are very basic for an LLC, because usually you are still using your 1040 and your Schedule C. If you are filing as an S corp, there's the 1120. I messed up that number, but there are the S corp tax forms that you would be filling out. Everybody is filing for taxes. Today we were talking, for the most part, because we were addressing the Schedule C, we were talking about home childcare providers. And then Luann, I happen to see, yep. Thank you so much, Laura. I appreciate you hanging in there. I have a great evening. Great evening, everyone. So in terms of Luann, in terms of your informal childcare provider for your grandchildren, I would have questions about that. Luann, are you still around? Let me just go to here and see if I can unmute you. All right. Luann, if you're still around, give me a little bit of backstory there. Give me some information about caring for your grandchildren.
Hey,
Hi.
yeah, so yeah, that's when my son has sole custody and he brings them to my house. There's 3 of them, 2, 5, and 6.
Okay.
And I'll watch them, and CAPS do send me I bill them, and they do send me a check every
Good.
Thursday.
Okay.
But when it comes to how do I well, I did have a friend do my taxes last year, and she said she put it as like a hobby, so I didn't have to pay taxes. And she told me on my regular job, just have them take more taxes out, which I did, so I wouldn't have to pay a lot when I do file the taxes this year. But I'm not a business.
Yeah, Luann, it's an interesting situation because you're receiving payment, but you're not operating as a business. And again, so this is where I never guess, right? I never tell you what I think my opinion is. I'm going to find out exactly what it is. Luann, could you throw your email address? You can put it in the chat just to me if you'd like, just to host and panelists, or if you don't mind, you could put it in the regular chat. If you don't mind putting your email in there, it's a unique situation. I'd like to pick the brain of the owner of Civitas Strategies just to see what Gary has to say, if that's okay with you.
Oh,
because
yes,
yeah,
I
you do
definitely
have,
need it.
yeah, you have a very unique situation, and you and I may end up having an email exchange about that.
That'll be perfect.
Okay, more than happy to help. If you don't mind just throwing me your email address, we will be in contact.
I put it in the Q&A. Do you see it?
Yep, I will find it. Where was I here? I will find it. I've got Q&As going all over the place.
Oh, okay.
Yep, there we go. Thank you, Luann. Okay, so you and I will be connecting offline. just tomorrow, probably by the afternoon, I'll have spoken to Gary.
All right, thank
All
you.
right. Thank you so much. And you have my email address in case if my email gets lost or goes to your
Mhm.
spam, you know how to get a hold of me.
I sure do.
All right.
Thank you. You have a good night.
Thank you, you too, and take care. Do we have anyone else who would like to make a mention? If not, then again, I will log off. I do apologize. This is going far over the time usually allotted by decal. And I do appreciate everyone hanging in there and also just kind of staying a little late with me. So I'm going to end this now. Emily, I'd like to thank Emily, our interpreter today, for providing such an amazing service as she always does. Thank you all for your participation tonight. And please, by all means, please go to the decal website where you can find information on additional webinars. So, thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day, or a great evening, and a nice rest of your week.